Hello everyone. So we made another video in Colombia where Fotis is kind of the star of the video. Fotis, maybe you can tell what the video is about.
Yeah, so the video is about picking up coffee, cherries, and do the whole process like whatever coffee pickers do. So picking up the coffee 6 in the morning and then bringing it back, weighing it up, washing it, do the everything.
Yeah.
That's just going.
So Fotis actually went out 6 in the morning with the pickers before I even got up in the morning and picked coffee cherries until lunch, which was around 12 o'clock.
11:30, 12, something like that.
Yeah, so you picked coffee cherries for around 6 hours. And then you took it back to the farm. You had to sort the cherries like all the other pickers. But after that, the pickers normally, continue picking coffee. But I wanted to show you how coffee is actually processed, dried and washed and fermented at Finca Tamana. But of course we did it in small scale.
Yeah, not in a big.
So how many kilos of cherries did you pick?
It was 11.5.
And we actually drank the coffee yesterday.
Yeah.
And how much roasted coffee did you end up with from those 11 kilos?
1.1.
1.1 kilo of roasted coffee. So now you can see the whole process, picking 11 kilos of cherries, depulping it, fermenting it, sorting it, washing it, drying it. We remove the parchment. You won't see the roasting, but we probably make another video about that.
Yeah.
But you can see the whole process of how coffee is picked, processed and dried before it actually comes to Norway and where it's roasted and consumed. So I hope you like the videos. I'm sorry for the portrait mode, but this was filmed for our Instagram story. But we got so much good feedback and people loved watching it, so we figured we will just put everything together into a YouTube video so you can watch it there. So if you have any questions about the whole process, please comment below. Bye.
Bye-bye.
You're stirring to get more coffee to float.
Okay, yeah.
And then I'm going to remove those as well. Okay, then you can remove. There's a lot of defects. Overmature, immature. Done cutting, we cut the bucket. It's very heavy. And then it's draining all the water. Heavy? Yeah. Sorting tables so we can sort. Yeah. Three. Elias is saying Fotis has been a good picker. What are we doing now, Fotis?
Now we're gonna pick up cherries.
So we're picking out, what are we picking out?
The overripe.
Yeah.
And
Yellow is okay. Also picking out the greens, like the ones in front. Yeah, like that one. Perfect. And overripe, can you show me an overripe? Perfect. These have to go. We only want the ripe cherries. Fotis?
yeah,
What are you doing now?
we're done. So we're just gonna put it on the bucket.
Perfect.
And then
So we're gonna weigh the cherries again after sorting. How many kilos did you pick?
11.
We have 8.6 kilos left. So 8.6 kilos of ripe coffee cherries ready to be processed. What are you doing now, Fotis?
So I'm gonna wash the bucket so we can process the coffee inside.
So we're gonna depulp the coffee on this small machine and ferment the coffee in this bucket. But first we need to clean it.
Yeah.
So now we're gonna process in this hand crank depulper. And the yellow cherries are also ripe, it's just a yellow variety, for those of you who's wondering. Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
Just do it. So, cherry skin goes in here. Cherries are up here. Beans go in here. Faster! So a bucket of coffee pulp. I think we'll just compost this. Or do you want to make cascara? It's too late to make cascara. Perfect. Depulped coffee.
Ready.
So Fotis, how many kilos of cherries did you pick?
11 kilos.
And how many were left after you sorted out the defects?
8.6.
8.6. And now we've depulped the coffee. Let's see how much green coffee there is left.
Let's see.
So we have 5.25 kilos of depulped coffee ready for fermentation. So for this, I suggest we dry ferment this coffee. It's going to be a little bit quicker. If we add water, it will take maybe 2 days to ferment. Without water, it'll be ready for tomorrow morning. And then we can wash the coffee. So we're just picking out the pulp. It's not really necessary because it'll ferment anyway, but and we can also remove it with water later. So for this, if you grab the coffee and kind of feel how slippery it is.
It's really slippery.
Yeah, it's like slimy. That's the mucilage that we're going to ferment and wash off tomorrow morning. So tomorrow you'll feel a very different texture on this coffee. So as always, with the equipment we use for roasting, brewing, whatever it is, it always needs a thorough clean after it's been used to make sure it's not dirty for the next batch. So for this, the coffee has now fermented overnight, and the way we check if the fermentation is ready is pretty easy. You stick a stick into it, wait, and if the hole collapses after you pull it out, it means the coffee is not ready. Check if the fermentation is ready. You can stick it in and pull it out. You see the hole collapses. Of course the bucket is on an angle, so we're going to try when it's standing. Let's try again when the bucket is standing. Just stick it straight in and then straight up. See, the hole is still there. So this is basically ready to be washed, but I will suggest that we leave it a little bit longer to see if we can get some more flavor out of it. But normally we would wash it now and then soak it in clean water. But I think we'll wait until maybe after lunch and we'll do it. So for this, the coffee is ready to be washed. Let's do this. Woo! Alright, so we filled the bucket with clean water, and now you can see that there's a lot of pulp floating, like the skins that we didn't remove, and also some beans. So we need to remove those with the sieve. So removing the floaters.
Again,
yes. So these beans are normally called pasillas, and you can sell them, but you get a very, very low price. And this goes to like instant coffee production here in Colombia. Okay. So now you can stir with your hand in the bottom, just to get some more beans to float up. And then you remove whatever is floating, like pulp and quick. And repeat this a couple of times. So the beans you are removing from floating here is normally beans that have not been developed fully on the tree. So they don't taste so good. So you can of course taste them, but they're gonna taste a lot like peanuts and very harsh, bitter, not sweet and fruity like the other coffees. So now you can start kind of squeezing the coffee inside the water to try to remove as much of the mucilage as you can. And then we're going to change the water a couple of times and repeat this until the water is clean. And this is why it's called washing. And you can feel the texture of the beans now is
Already changed.
Yeah, it was much more slippery yesterday.
Yeah.
So this is a sign that it's the fermentation has worked. So now we're going to change water and then repeat the cleaning. So just pour out the water.
Yeah.
And those light beans that are floating out now, you can also throw away. Not throw away, but put aside. We can already see that the coffee is cleaner.
Different texture as well.
Yeah, it feels much more rough, like sandpaper maybe. So now you're gonna fill the bucket with water again and start repeating the same cleaning technique.
Yeah.
And now you don't need that much water.
Okay.
Like this amount that you're doing now is enough. Let's try to conserve some water and just clean it until the water gets dirty, and then you repeat, you pour out the water and then get in some new. You can see the water is now dirty again. So now we change the water one more time and we repeat. So third round of water.
Not that much again.
No. We can see the water is actually getting cleaner, of course. You try to kind of squeeze the coffee in your hands so that you kind of rub off the mucilage. Alright, Fotis, you're happy?
Yeah, that looks really great.
Yeah, the water is still slightly dirty. So we're gonna drain this water and then we're gonna fill the buckets a little bit more this time so we can remove the remaining floaters.
Okay, perfect.
So just fill it up like you did on the first time.
Yeah.
Alright, so now you can see it's easier to look inside the water and see what's floating. So if you just stir around with your hand, then you remove whatever is kind of floating with that little sieve.
If we're gonna continue a little bit more, I'm gonna end with 1 kilo of coffee.
Yes. So in Kenya, for instance, they will do this in washing channels. And because the water is kind of going downstream all the time, and they put the coffee in channels, the light stuff will float with the water downstreams. But the problem with this is that it uses a lot of water. So at Tamana, we're now installing a machine to clean the coffee. And then we're going to soak the coffee afterwards, where we will remove any floaters. Okay, Fotis. Yeah, I think you removed most of the floaters, most of the pulp. We can sit here forever, but normally what happens after the coffee is dried, we also send it to a mill where the coffees will be sorted on density. So the kind of semi-light beans will be removed there. So now you can drain the water, and then we're just going to fill the bucket with clean water, halfway. So now you can feel the coffee is clean, but there's still a little bit of mucilage left on. And then, so we're gonna soak the coffee in clean water until tomorrow. And this is also, we want to make sure that the moisture content in all the beans are more or less the same. That's at least the theory behind it. So that when we dry the coffee is dried more evenly. And in our experience, soaking the coffee in clean water after it's washed increases the shelf life. But before we soak, you should try to pick out the red cherries that's left. You just pick them out.
Yeah.
So sorting done, let's fill the bucket halfway with water and then we're gonna leave it until tomorrow, and this is called soaking. We can take the bucket to the little shed again so it's not in the sunlight. And we're just gonna leave it until tomorrow. Was it fun?
Yeah.
Now you know how to wash coffee. And tomorrow we'll put them on the dryers and then we can do some sorting while it's at its wet stage, where you kind of remove some defects that you can see when it's wet. And then we're also going to pick out defects during drying.
Nice.
I thought it's 2 days since we picked 11 kilos of coffee, and we sorted the cherries. We have fermented the coffee, depulped it, and then fermented it, and then washed it yesterday, and it's been soaking in clean water since yesterday until today. And now it's time to drain the water and take it to the dryers, but before we do that, we're going to weigh how much coffee you have left from the 11 kilos you picked. Drain the water, and all of it, because we're taking it to the dryers. So just pour out the coffee, it doesn't matter. Yes. So let's weigh the coffee, Fotis, after it's been soaked. See how much is left. Looks pretty clean, huh?
Yeah.
Cleaner than yesterday. That's because we're soaking. How many kilos do you think? We had 5.25 before we fermented.
3.5.
Close. 3.25. So 3.25 kilos of wet parchment coffee will maybe translate into 1.2 kilos of green coffee. Maybe a little bit more, 1.5 maybe, and then we'll end up around 1 kilo of roasted coffee. Maybe a little bit more, maybe 1.2. So you spend how much time did you spend picking?
6 or 7 hours.
7 hours. And then how much time did you spend on processing? Probably an hour.
An hour.
And now the coffee is gonna dry for 2 weeks. All this job for about a kilo of roasted coffee. So you better not spill those beans on the floor. You better not spill those beans on the floor. The coffee to the dryers.
Yeah.
So we're gonna dry the coffee on these raised beds, and you can see there's a shade net in the ceiling and plastic around us, because in Colombia it rains a lot, so we need to kind of protect from very humid weather. But we open the sides here when it's very hot so the coffee doesn't overheat. So you can open these doors. Now Fotis just has to clean the bed. So a lot of people call these African beds, but these beds have never been to Africa. So raised beds would probably be a good descriptor, or suspended beds. What's very common in many countries is to dry the coffee straight onto the cement patio, which is not great. It's hard to keep it dry. It overheats a lot. Doesn't taste as clean as if when you dry it on raised beds. So that's why we always dry our coffees on raised beds, and we don't buy coffees that have been dried on patios. Now I can just pour the coffee in and just spread it out in an even layer. And now it's time to pick out anything that looks ugly. So any broken beans, if you see beans like this one that's been eaten by broca. A lot of people like to pick these green ones out. We have done an experiment where we picked them out and didn't really find a big difference, but I know that other people have done it and found that they don't taste so good. So maybe you should pick some of those out. There's also these kind of small discolored ones. Any pulp you want to remove, anything that looks black, any bean without parchment, so this is a bean without the parchment, you take out. Now we're done doing a quick selection of defects that are very visual. But of course, normally they wouldn't do that here. They would do it maybe on the best lots that are laying here, like SL28, Bourbon. Especially when it's dry, they pick out any black stuff. But also, of course, this coffee will be sorted on the dry mill with electronic sorters, and sometimes by people as well, by hand sorting. And they're screen sorted. It's also sorted on density. So by the time we get it, there's a lot less again in Norway. So we'll continue this quest in Norway. Now the coffee is going to lay here and dry for hopefully a week or a little bit more, and I'll bring it home. Maybe we'll finish drying it in a mechanical dryer at home. And then we can hull it and sort it again, and then roast it, and then taste it. Thanks for watching.
Thanks.
Anything you want to say, Fotis?
It's a really hard job.
Hello again, Fotis.
Hello.
You're back in Norway?
Back.
We're both back in Norway. And I brought your coffee back home that you picked and processed. Do you want to weigh it, how much it ended up being?
Yeah, sure. So, this one as well. Right?
Yes.
So it is
1.7 kilos, more or less. You remember how much you picked?
11 kilos, 11 point something.
11 point something kilos of cherries is now 1.7 kilos of parchment coffee. So this coffee, let's open a bag. So parchment coffee, we call it parchment coffee because it has this kind of parchment layer around the green bean. Inside the parchment layer you see another layer which is called the silver skin, but that's normally removed during milling. So we end up with the green bean that's inside there again. So we need to remove this, and that's kind of time consuming to do by hand, so we're going to use that machine that we have. This is a dehuller that we can use for both naturals and washed coffees after it's dried. So that machine will remove the parchments. Let's do it. So let's put the coffee into the machine for this. Just pour it in. Okay, the beans are in the machine. Let's put the lid on. And then you need to put some weight on it. Something like that. And then before we turn the machine on, we need a plastic container for all the parchment. Okay, let's do this. Turn it on.
Yeah.
That was first round. Let's see what happened. Let's open the machine.
Okay.
And just take the lid off. Now you spilled already some beans.
Whoa.
And hold the plastic underneath while we turn this like that. So this machine is basically, let's see, this machine is basically a rotating kind of iron or steel thing with sharp edges, and then it kind of scrapes the beans next to this metal here, and so that the parchment goes off. So that's removing parchment. And all you got to do now is to pick out if there's any defects, if there's any leftover silver skin. You see there's a, where was it? This one. You see this bean has been eaten by a coffee berry borer, so we need to remove those. And we might also screen sort the beans to remove the smallest ones. So we have some screen sorters we can show. But this is a screen sorter. It's basically a metal mesh with a number on it. This is screen 15. And normally in Colombia we'll buy screen 15 and up. So we buy all the beans that are bigger than screen 15. We do actually separate screen 15, 16 from the 17 and up. So we actually have, from one batch of coffee, we have 2 different sizes that we roast. But since it's not a lot of coffee, I think we just need to do 15 and up on all of it. So yeah, just pour it in and then you shake a little bit. And you shake it with the pan. Hold it down on the pan and then you shake it. Shake it, baby. All right, so you've been shaking for a little while, so now you can open the pan and see there's a couple of small beans falling down here. They're not necessarily bad. They can be pea berries, but they can also be smaller beans that normally will be like Quakers, like the very light beans in the roasting pan. So we separate it because we don't want it, and then Elias sells it internally in Colombia. But in most cases, it will be going to commercial coffee. And the reason why we remove it is because there's a lot of times there's a lot of broken beans and small defects and so on. You can see there's some pea berries here, and pea berries are not normally sold in Colombia. It's sold in Kenya. But this is something we can probably do something about and ask to get the pea berries if we find a mill that is able to separate it for us. So for this, we did all the milling. How many kilos do we have left? Let's see. So of high quality coffee, we haven't sorted the defects yet, but there's not that many in them. 1.3 kilos. So we already lost 400 grams. So 11.5 kilos of cherries, 5 hours of picking time equals 1.3 kilos of green coffee, and we still haven't roasted it. And of course, there is some weight loss in the roast. We can estimate that. So let's measure the moisture content of this coffee, and then we can estimate more or less how much weight loss we'll have with the light roast. So let's measure the moisture content with our Agromatic Digital Super One moisture content reader. And this has a built-in scale, so you're supposed to fill up until it says 100, which is not 100 grams. For some reason. Yeah, that's it. When you see the arrow is there, now you can stop. Then you press test. 12.2. So that means this coffee is a little moist. We should be drying it a little bit more. But since we're not storing this coffee, we could also just roast it because it's not that high in moisture. Normally we accept between 9 and 11%. But it really depends on the moisture meter because they show a little bit different. So with 12% moisture content, we can estimate that we have maybe 12 to 13% weight loss during roasting. So if you take 1.3 kilos, you're going to lose maybe 200 grams. So you'll end up with around 1.1 kilo of roasted coffee maybe. Congratulations. So you better not spill those beans on the floor. Thank you. Oh. And now you're going to end up with less.